Welcome to the Word for 2021. Today we're in Genesis chapter 17. 13 years have gone by since the last verse of chapter 16 and the first verse of chapter 17. There's been 24 years from the time that God first spoke to Abraham in chapter 12, verse 1, till here in chapter 17, verse 1. There will have been 25 years between the promise of having a son in chapter 12 to the birth of Isaac in chapter 21. During these years, it's been a time for God to work on Abraham. It's been a time of growth for Abraham. It's been a time of testing, a time of preparation. It's a process that God was taking Abraham through so that Abraham would trust God. Well, during all these years, there have been highs and there have been lows. There have been times where Abraham has been faithful, also where Abraham has failed. Abraham has been faithful many different times, but God has always been faithful through all these years. Here in chapter 17, God makes a covenant with Abraham. This is the second covenant that he's made. The first covenant was in chapter 15. In that covenant, God promised to give all of the land that Abraham saw to him and to his descendants. Here in chapter 17, a second covenant is given to Abraham. God makes a promise with Abraham that from this moment on, he will be known as his God and the God of all his descendants. And all the land of Canaan will be his and to all of his descendants. And the sign of this covenant was that Abraham and all of the males within his home and all of his descendants should have the sign of circumcision upon them. Well, after that, then God changed the name of Abram to Abraham, and he changed the name of Sarai to Sarah. Now, Abram meant exalted father. Abraham means father of many. He gave him a brand new name to remind him of his brand new identity and of the promise that he was making. So every time Abraham would hear his name, he would be reminded of the promise and the covenant that God was making. Well, in chapter 17, verse 17, Abraham, when he hears again that he's going to have a child, he laughs. He has fallen on his face and he's laughing, saying, will a man of 100 years of age and a woman of 90 actually have a child? Well, the answer was yes, because God does miracles. He did a miracle then, and God still does miracles today. In verse 19, God then tells Abraham that he is to name his son Isaac. On that very day, he obeyed God and he circumcised himself and all of those in his household. Let me go back and talk to you about the changing of names for just a moment. Well, God has given us a brand new name too. Our name used to be sinner, but now it is saint. Our name used to be unlovable, but now we are loved. It used to be rejected, but now we are chosen. It used to be forsaken, but now we are cherished. It used to be lost, but now found. God has given us a brand new name to remind us of who we really are in him. A new name and a new nature, all because of God's goodness and his grace. God loves us, and God will never leave us or forsake us. Here in chapter 17, God was reminding Abram that he is faithful. Even though Abraham has been faithless in the past, he's given him a brand new name that he will be the father of many, reminding him that God keeps his promises. God is the same yesterday, today, and forever. And as God was in the past, he will be in the future. And God is faithful to you and to me. Thank you for joining the Word for 2021.